Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 36th episode of Voice of Silence. Before we begin, I want to paint a little picture for everybody. So imagine this. I go to somebody's house, a very beautiful woman who's sprawled nicely on a pristine white sofa. And then there is this twilight twinkling lights in front of her over luscious green indoor plants, beautiful shadows. And I enter and I talk to her, and everything that engulfs me is nothing short of warmth, love, joy, and happiness. Those were some 45 minutes spent with this beautiful lady who's with me, whose name is Dr. Shibal Bhartiya. She's going to correct me right now by saying, please can you start calling me Shibal now. So Shibal it is, our 36th voice of silence, who would like to be called voice of joyful kindness. On that note, can we please give a round of applause and welcome her.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to do this, Shibal.
Oh, it's such a joy to be here. It is, and you look fabulous.
Thank you, so do you.
That's beside, on the side.
So, Shibal, let's begin. Let's begin with your childhood, your family. If you could just give us a structure so that then we know where you're coming from, for the viewers who don't know you. It's always nice to kind of build like a foundation and see, okay, why the joyful kindness?
Okay.
A little sneak peek into where you were born, your family.
So I was born in Delhi, grew up between Delhi and Patna, born to overachiever, serious parents, and I had a perfect little brother who was a perfect little boy, which made life miserable for me because I was far from perfect. A house full of books, you can't imagine how many, and a table full of food all the time. So that's perhaps what home was like, but childhood is never perfect. It's like the ultimate illusion of perfection. It's like cold fusion. It's like the calorie-free dessert. It doesn't exist. Even though it's a wonderful idea, there will always be something that's missing, and I can't put my finger on it because in the execution the idea will always falter, right? Which was a blissful, happy time growing up, shuttling between Delhi and Patna. College was here, and actually school was here too. So from 1990 to now, it's pretty much been Delhi. Last 6 years I've lived in Gurgaon. I've worked for the last 12 here in the city, and it's been a happy life.
And so you said schooling has been from here.
College as well.
And college. There was a quick detour to Switzerland. And was that for education, for your formal training as a doctor in medicine?
So this was for my super specialization. So I have a degree in something called glaucoma. In ophthalmology, it's the only disease that has its own specialization.
Right.
So that's how important it is, and we will talk of glaucoma as well. And I got a degree from the Department of Clinical Neurosciences in Geneva, stayed on to work there as well. It was part of trying to escape a miserable personal life, and part, of course, was training. And then home beckons.
I can't get over the fact that you just, that little thing that you said, calorie-free dessert.
So that's,
it's
really,
such a nice,
mom, right?
It's such a beautiful, allusion to how families, yeah, you're right. I mean, but it's such a nice expression, calorie-free dessert. It is. It's very creative, very nice.
And families are usually undernourished and overpowerful.
And overpowerful?
Always. Yours and mine too. I mean, we look at the power balance sometime in retrospect.
Absolutely. I'm actually relating. And it's true, I'm not just relating with my own family, my husband's.
Everybody's.
We all are. We all are actually. In fact, the speaker that came before you had something similar to say. So all of us, and again, none of us are placing blame. We are just saying it as it is, and God knows how our children will talk ahead. But the point is, this is just how it is.
Yes.
Right?
So I call it the ties that bind and gag. So they do, right?
It is true.
They do.
It is true.
Yeah, I'm sure my son's going to say the same thing.
Henna? Well, talking about your son Aradhya, you have been a single parent, and beautifully at that. Take us through your journey. Take us through the whole journey, the highs, the lows, or anything else. And Shibal, this is also for people who may be watching you God knows where. So anything you would like to, like share from your journey as a single parent, as a single mother?
Okay. So Aradhya. So there's a friend of mine called Hemant who takes very pretty pictures. And he says to take a pretty picture of me, he doesn't have to say smile or cheese. He says Aradhya and my face changes. So he's like my overwhelming pride, my overwhelming joy, and also my overwhelming love. But he's also 17. And it comes with all the trappings of 17. Nothing's missing from the 17 either. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. And you know as a mum that it takes a village to bring up a child.
Yeah.
It's not me who does it alone. And I, as part of my clinical training, very, very completely believe in super specialization. So if I have a knee problem, I will not go to a cardiologist. So my village has a lot of super specialists. So if I need logical, insanely clinical, precise advice about Aradhya, I'll go to Nikhil. If I want somebody who will let me say, fuck the world, I'm fiercely, fiercely loyal to you and behind you, I'll go to Grashmi, or I'll go to Dr. Bela. And if I want to laugh my head off till I pee, I will go to Tina, and I will go to I think, Gudidi. And if I want to be like serious mommy, tiger mom, then I'll go to Jyotsna and Ruchi. So I have that behind me. And Tanul, Aradhya's father, has been a delightful co-parent. I mean, he just puts everything into perspective. If I'm on my rant, ye ho gaya, Allah, ye falana dhikana, he will say, Sheena, he's better than what you were like when you were 17. And then that kind of restores perspective. And then when that doesn't help, then he'll say he's better than I was when I was 17, so chup raho. Right? And that's perfect advice for that time. I really believe at the end of the day, we are all, and I don't know how you live in your homes, but we are all single parents at the end of the day.
Yes, you said that. You said that single parenting is a natural progression.
Yes.
What does that mean? I agree with it, the sound of it,
Yes.
but what does that mean?
So at the end of the day, it's your interaction with another person. And when it comes to the crunch, there's nobody. It doesn't matter who you're going to bed with. It doesn't matter who lives in the home, but when you're talking to your child, and in the moment when it matters the most, it's just the two of you. And how is that any different, right? Really, and I know that even if, Tanul and I had lived the happily ever after, I would still be a single parent. And he would still be a single parent too, because you will deal with the child alone. And this is not to discredit the trauma that, a broken home comes with. I recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have agonized over it. I have lived through it. There are custody battles, there are financial upheavals.
Yes.
And more than anything else, there is that fear that have I scarred this child because he doesn't know a model heteronormative home? That's scary. But I know that despite that, how I react to Aradhya is, if I were to describe my parenting of Aradhya and my role as his parent, I am Aradhya's Anya. That's what he calls me. I am not Aradhya's single mom. That's not how he looks at me, and that's not how I look at myself. And being a single mom is a very, very small part of me being Aradhya's Anya or me being a mom. Right? It doesn't define the relationship, because our relationship is so much more than my marital status or my having or not having a partner. Right? And we sometimes, it can get very cloying, but that's how I feel truly, because at the end of the day, we are all doing this alone and we're all clueless and we're all looking for support from people we don't know. There was a time, I don't know, was it you, Deepa, when I was like, I don't know how to teach my child. I mean, I need somebody to teach him history. And somebody from Facebook said, I will. And that's it. Yeah, you remember that, right? Because I was floundering. I mean, this was COVID. Aradhya wanted some help in social studies, and I tried teaching him, and I was like, I'm going to die if I have to read this book one more time. I can't do this.
That I relate
I
with.
cannot do this. And I put it out on Facebook, and somebody said, I will. How does my being a single parent change? Because I'm as isolated if there was a father who lived in the same house. No, I don't look at myself through that prism.
This is...
Neither do you, do you? Yeah.
This. So, well, I must say that this is a very elevated way
No,
of
it's not an elevated way at all. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं रोई नहीं हूँ.
I was coming to that. I was coming. I know that.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, so you had mentioned that Kanika like to live with intent.
Yes.
Now my next question, but before that, there is obviously a journey which you must have traveled through to finally make a choice to live with intent and then come to this space that you're talking about right now, which I'm sure has been going on for a while.
And you stumble every single day.
Every single day, but it is an elevated form of thinking. I mean, maybe I'm younger than you and there's as much that I've seen in the world, but whatever I've seen, I'm telling you, it is an elevated way of thinking. It is. Not everybody thinks like that. Not everybody does, because
It's the easiest way of being. To say, ठीक है मुझसे नहीं होगा, आप भी आ जाएं, शामिल हो जाएं, because this child is as much. And I keep saying this to everyone. I say this to people who say thank you when I take care of their children. बच्चे सबके सांझे होते हैं. I mean, we were brought up by a community. And we are, as on date, we are all growing up, right?
Yeah.
Even though I have more grey, I'm still being fostered by a community. And it's Sanja, it has to be. I mean, I see no reason to not ask for help for his social sciences on Facebook. And I see no reason why I shouldn't offer it if somebody asks for that of me. For a child, you're supposed to do it. It's how children are to be brought up. Knowing they can ask for help and offered help as well.
I'm just a little blown away. It's just beautiful. It's just very, very, very beautiful. It's like soulful. And thank you for even thinking like that. I know you practice it, but even saying it and sharing it with us is so much to take away from this. We tend to live in our silos na sometimes. हो जाता है ना? तो ये अच्छी बात है.
I'll tell you how it works, Kanika, and I know I have been there, so I can tell you this because it's, I've 10 odd years more than you have lived, so I know, because when you are struggling and when you have very little and when you know you have very little, that's when it's very difficult to ask for help.
Exactly.
Right? When you're at your most vulnerable, you will not be able to say मुझे मदद की ज़रूरत है क्योंकि तुम्हें लगता है you're talking from a position of weakness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So today when I say I need help, I know I can afford to pay for that help.
Yes.
And I would still not want to, not because I don't have the money, but I would rather that it be a kindness. And that comes from a place of power.
And strength. Yeah.
And strength, of course.
And fearlessness.
Courage.
Courage is a better word.
Courage.
Yes. Courage.
Yes, it does. And that can only come when you're comfortable in your own skin, when you know you've done enough to ask for help because you know you would do it for the other. Seriously, I mean, the first step is yours. And then
I don't know why I'm tearing. I don't know. But
you just have to take the first step. Always.
No, it's just so beautiful what you're saying.
There is nobody who will deny you help. And it isn't, the kindness in the world is not finite. The joy in the world is not finite. It is not a zero-sum game.
Yeah,
if I am kind to you, it doesn't mean I have less kindness to give to anybody else.
Just like love. Just like love.
Just like love.
The more you have, the more gets generated.
Yes.
Energy.
And the more you get.
The more you get.
Yeah.
I know.
And you just have to learn to ask. You just have to learn to ask.
Did that come easy to you?
No.
Was that part of the living with intent?
Of course. Asking. So my best friend, who's no longer in this world, was also my spiritual advisor and a Jesuit priest who is like the person I would used to turn to. And one day I asked him, and I was like, "What do you think, Father Paul, is missing in me as a person?" So he said, I will point out two things. One, you lack discernment. You don't sometimes know where to give and where not to give, and that's fine. I mean, you'll get used to it. The world will teach you that. And the second, he said, is that you haven't learned to receive. You've learned to give, but you haven't learned to receive, and that's so important to be gracious in receiving, in knowing that you're worthy of a kindness, because there is great joy in giving, and you're denying somebody that joy when you don't let them give it to you. if you offer to do my eyelashes like yours, you will be happy when my eyelashes look pretty too.
Yeah.
And if I say, no, Kanika, don't do it,
Yeah,
you will be denied that joy.
Yes.
So it is an interaction between equals. If you give me, I become no less of a person, and vice versa. And there is a reciprocity to our living. I mean, I'm breathing in oxygen. The trees are making sure there's enough oxygen for me to breathe in, or whatever, jitne bhi peड़ bache hain, utne. And there is a reciprocity. They need the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. And we have to understand how closely interlinked all our lives are. And there is, there should be no hassles or pretenses or hesitation in asking. And it is a right you have on your fellow human beings, and it's a right that they have on you. And the minute you recognize that is when it becomes easy. It's this स्वयं सिद्धा of us ना कि हम सब कुछ खुद करके दिखाएंगे, झांसी की रानी भी हम ही है, मदर टेरेसा भी हम ही है. नहीं है यार, कैसे हो सकते हैं?
आपका ये transition कब हुआ? Was there a moment? I know it cannot be like
No,
a cut and dried, because obviously
it comes from when you grow up, I think, or at least try to grow up. So, but I think of my life. I mean, every time I think of it consciously, I think of it, the watershed is about 12, 13 years ago, right? It may have been a process that took the longest. It would have been. Which there was twin trauma. I was in bed following an accident for a longish time. And I also was dealing with a broken marriage and the transition from Switzerland back to India. And it isn't a time that I look back as with great joy, but I look back at it as a time of great growth, right? पड़े रहते थे बिस्तर पे, पंखा देखते रहते थे. कितनी देर पंखा देखोगे? So I stopped looking at the pankha, start looking at life. So, and I'm a clinician, clinical researcher at heart, right? So very mathematical in how I model everything. So I could break my life into 3 parts. That there were 3 things that I had to look at, and they were interconnected, but they were very distinct from each other. The first was me as a doctor. No, the first was me as Aradhya's mum, who I call Anya. The second was me as a doctor, which is also something I am very, very passionate about. And the third was somebody who I had not been very kind to for the longest time, and that was Shibal. Right? And I know it sounds stupid, but that's the mathematical model I worked on. So when I looked at Aradhya's mother, A was about what, 3 and a bit, 4? So what I had to look at was how do I keep him safe? How do I make sure that my personal upheaval doesn't upset his life as much? And how do I ensure that when he looks back at life, it is with, it's it's knowing that, okay, I mean, it could have been better, but it wasn't so bad. And I know I've done well there. He might judge me differently later, but a few months ago, Aradhya was struggling with something. Padhai kar raha tha usse. And I said, Aradhya, can I help with that? So he looks at me and I was like, I mean, can I help with that? So he looks at me and he says, no, you've done enough. You taught me enough. So it's like, I taught you congruence. How in the name of God, is that helping you with what you're reading right now? So he looked at me and, I will never forget this because that was my moment of having arrived. He looks at me and he says, you taught me how to be kind to people and you taught me right from wrong. I think I'm sorted. And I was like, mic drop. My work is done. I can die today. I don't need to do anything as his mom anymore.
Wow.
And then he looked at me and he was like, why don't you just leave my room now? And I was like, okay, this is it. So, but that was me. And I knew he will judge me differently. I know. But in that moment, I knew Radha's Anya was how I should have lived. And, and I also realized that Aradhya's presence in my life has been my moral compass. I know he's watching and I know he's learning. Yeah. He's not listening so much, as he's imbibing
Experiencing.
and
seeing.
experiencing and seeing.
Yeah.
And so I must live true to who I want him to be, right? So that was part one of who needed to be sorted first. As part of Aradhya's safety, I had to compromise on me being a doctor, because I decided that I will only work during school hours. It was a crazy life decision, crazy personal decision, crazy professional decision, because it meant that I did fewer surgeries, money was less. My trajectory, which was like glorious before, did not just plateau, it went like so. Those were decisions I had to make. The other decision I consciously made was to invest in my patients. So I don't know, I mean, most people, I think I've done true to that as well, is that I will be available to you for more than ophthalmology as well, should you want to talk. I mean, it's like, sometimes it's really embarrassing because people will book an eye consult and come and start crying in my opinion and be like, no, we do this over the phone sometime else. Not now, not in the clinic. Which I take great pride in being their friend as well. The second part of my professional life was that I realized that education is very deficient in how we teach people to be doctors, whether it is medical ethics, whether it is communication, or whether it is actually learning how to piece together a story. And I was phenomenally blessed in two teachers that I had who taught me glaucoma. One taught me the science of glaucoma, and the other one made me unlearn it all and learn the art of glaucoma practice. And then I started writing glaucoma, because I thought if I've had the kind of teachers, I knew I didn't have them through my, through the years of growing up. And when I finally lucked out, and they were enough, they were secure enough to let me have it. And then what happened is that now I'm 20 textbooks in glaucoma old.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it is crazy, right? But I'm 20 textbooks old and more than 200 peer-reviewed publications in research and nonsense. And these are just clinical things I've picked up. And so that was the other part of me being a doctor. That was extremely fulfilling because I would travel to teach all over initially I used to travel all over the world to teach, now more all over the country. And it's just so gratifying to have somebody come up and say, "Oh, I've read your book." And I was like, "Oh, yes, how nice." So it's really cute, right? When you have, like people who are your peers, your juniors and your seniors also would come and say, "Oh," and invariably they think I should be some grey-haired man, right? And I love walking in my which is a string wala blouse, and I was like, no, not really. So that works, that is fun. And so those were the two biggies. And then was the third person who was not really taken care of for the longest time, Shibal. In hindsight, what I was going through was depression. What I was going through was anorexia. I just thought I didn't have time to eat. I thought I didn't have the courage to ask for help. I perhaps also thought I was vulnerable and that people might take advantage of the fact that I need help. Whatever, it was a time of extreme close down. And gradually I realized that was not the way to be. And this is going to be my segue into right? So Aradhya used to go to his father over the weekend. So Friday, Tanul would very happily pick up Chavanni and take him home. And he would come either Sunday night or Monday. And I was bereft because there was nothing for me to do. My life was so structured around A that I didn't know what else to do. So I used to live in east of Kailash.
Yeah, I was going to say, this was the east of Kailash time.
This is the east of Kailash time, which was close to his school, which is DPS east of Kailash. And I used to commute to Gurgaon to work. It was a very full life when A was around, right? I mean, you were doing everything and anything. And suddenly there was nothing to do for 2.5 days. And there was just your isolation and your demons and your fears to confront. So D block is कैलाश का बड़ा गंदा सा DDA का पार्क है. So I started going नीचे, and I didn't want to talk to people who lived there for no reason other than the fact because they would ask, "Sir कहाँ हैं? Sir भी doctor हैं?" Right? I don't want to have that conversation. So I started talking to the street children who were there in the park. Because हमारे घरों के बच्चे वो D block पार्क में नहीं जाते थे, वो कहीं और जाते थे खेलने. धीरे धीरे started out, पढ़ते हैं, कुछ करने को नहीं है, पढ़ना शुरू करते हैं, कुछ करते हैं. धीरे धीरे I didn't have the bandwidth or the money to do more. And we're allowed to use brands here, right? हाँ. So bread jam was the simplest thing to do, right? कि बच्चों को कुछ खाने को हो जाएगा. So किसान जैम की 2 bottles जितने में आती थी, इतनी छोटी छोटी, इतना बड़ा टॉप्स जैम का प्लास्टिक का डब्बा आता था उतने का. So that प्लास्टिक का डब्बा which looks like a jerry can and like loaves of bread were my constants. वो लेके मैं नीचे आ जाती थी because there wasn't enough money also to be able to do it. This was also part of, oh well, it was scary. ब्रेड पे जैम लगाया, बच्चे खा रहे हैं, उसमें ही जो जैसे आराध्य का जूठा खा लिया वैसे कभी किसी का खा लिया. And slowly then the mothers would come and then you're a doctor so you know मम्मियाँ कुछ. Then एक लड़की की शादी हो रही थी, वो आई बोली दीदी कुछ करिए. And I became like जगत अम्मा. It was like really weird. So like weird people started calling me Amma and things like that, including Rashmi. And then slowly things started happening. So I said, chalo aankhein check karte hain, chalo let's talk about menstrual hygiene, let's talk about sanitation, let's talk about things. And there would be no takers for that, right? Because you don't see value in that when you are struggling. Maslow's hierarchy में तुम नीचे हो, अभी खाने का जुगाड़ है नहीं, हम तुमको सिखा रहे हैं कि तुम हाइजीन के बारे में बात करो या क्या करो. So I said, चलो प्रेशर कुकर में केक बनाना सिखाते हैं. So the day I said हम प्रेशर कुकर में केक बनाना सिखाएंगे, everybody and their grandparents were there. वैसे तुम प्रेशर कुकर में केक तो बनाएंगे पर साथ में ये भी करेंगे. And I don't know who understood that I was struggling with food. I don't know who understood. But somebody or the other over the weekend would always be there with a paranthi from their kitchen and some really तेज मिर्चों वाली आलू की सब्जी के साथ ही खा लेते हैं. And these are people who did not have anything. And I always say this. When I was nursing an injury that had left me incapable of doing anything, people from the secretariat in my hospital, and Fabienne, I can never talk of kindness and not mention her, they decided I needed to be taken care of. And similarly, here in the Juggies behind D Block, they decided I needed to be taken care of. And I was taken care of. And I'm, the rest of my life, I have tried to repay that kindness. I just have to. I have received so much that I can't not do it. Yeah, but Kanika,
It is so amazing.
your story is no different from mine, sweetheart. You're just not looking at it from this.
Maybe.
It is.
But it's just nice to, it's just very beautiful listening to this. It really is. It kind of ignites love, hope in the world.
Yes.
That we live in daily, that we only ho jata hai. You get so intertwined in your daily activities, especially when you're not suffering the way you thought you were.
Yeah, I know, because when
so
you are in that space, I didn't recognize it as anorexia. I mean, and I'm a doctor, I'm like, I didn't recognize it as anorexia. I didn't recognize it as depression either. I was just overwhelmed with what was happening, but it wasn't depression. Depression to दूसरों को होता है. नहीं, हमें थोड़ी होता है.
But Shibal, at this point, you'll not take it, but I still would like to say, at that point when you were at your lowest, your spirit allowed you
Yes.
to go to the park and do for others. So you were at your rawest, closest to your spirit in terms of kindness. I think that split out like is what I see. Am I making sense?
Yes, you are. I didn't look at it that way,
Yeah.
but you're right.
Isn't it?
Yes.
You were not clouded so badly with the blankets and shrouds of depression where you wanted to possibly go another way. You were like, you know what, नीचे चले जाते हैं. अरे इनके पास खाना नहीं है, सबसे cheap वाला ले आती हूँ यार. अब ठीक है, I can't afford Kisan right now. Let me afford the bigger dabba, but let's all eat together. That, although ideally should be the way it should be, but it's not so
easy.
I mean, it's not so easy to find. Is what I'm saying, and that is your spirit, and that is what is photoing, it's sprouting in this room. I'm sure everybody's feeling it, and I am. Believe me, I am. I felt that was my introduction to you, of you.
Yeah.
And you carry your saris are kindness.
My saris are also
They
not
are.
mine.
She is always wrapped in
Yes,
kindness. Isn't
yeah,
it true?
That is true. I'm wrapped in overwhelming affection from people who give me their saris.
Yeah, and I meant it in a
Yes,
different way.
yes,
but
I hear
yes.
you.
So I'm going to take a quick segue, like you said, and then we come back to the main, to the more important topic. But so we both are Pisceans, everybody, and incidentally, we also share our love for Mr. Shah Rukh Khan. Now, as much as, like she's saying that jitna pyar hota hai aur badhta hai, and hope and love, it does not apply to Shah Rukh Khan. So when I got to know about Shibal and I started to follow her, and then I saw how she reacted to her latest movie, and I'm like, okay, आप रहने दो, मैं प्यार करती हूँ उससे, please, मुझे नहीं चाहिए. I'm the only one. So that's what. I mean, क्या है ये? रहने दो उसको, छोड़ दो. Because you're like my son's exams are going on, and something you wrote about the latest movie of his.
Yeah, so I couldn't go to watch the first day first show, so I sent 50 of my children from school. I was like, "Jao, tum to dekh ke aao papa ko."
तुम तो देखो पापा को. She, no.
No. So what
I did not just hear that.
Yes, you did. When Aradhya was born, I was like, thank God he has daddy's dimples. His biological father doesn't have dimples.
नहीं, मुझे नहीं सुना ही. But he's so cute.
Yes, and he loves me so much. I mean, I'm
We
really
don't know that.
No,
We don't know that.
you don't know that. I know that. So A goes off to college next year.
And
2020.
where do you go off to?
No, to 2024, we sign a movie together. Shah Rukh and I.
That is my
2025, we get married. And then I will ask you to coffee and you can fangirl all over him. I have no problems. But he's just so loyal to me. He's not going to look at you. I mean, it's pretty sari at all.
We'll see. We'll see.
No, we know.
उसके ऊपर मूवी बनेगी जब मैं आऊंगी. उसके ऊपर मूवी बनेगी.
हाँ, मतलब fan type की.
नहीं. कभी अलविदा ना कहना टाइप की.
मैंने देखी नहीं है. मतलब मैंने देखी है, but I'm ignoring it.
The one which had.
Yeah, I know.
That he was not in love with his wife and he went out
That's
with
okay.
another woman because he fell in love with her. All right.
No, some things are worth fighting for.
Totally, na?
You know?
I've loved this part the most. Okay. That was fun. So, coming back to the point, you spoke about kindness. You spoke about how it is abundant in your life in receiving and in giving.
Yes.
Is that the foundation of Vision Unlimited?
Of course.
And please talk about it.
Of course. I mean, of course, because, there is a time when we all look at life and we say that we're doing this for someone, but they're doing it right back for you. Right back. The way the children react to you. Like, I reached out to Deepa saying I need somebody who'd interpret because we were having people over. And I didn't think too much in terms of asking her for her time because I know that she would receive so much more than she would give. And I call it my selfishness of giving. The best $500 you can spend is the one that you spend on a friend.
Yes, that's true.
Right? Or for a stranger.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We've all known that. It's just flawed in practice. Because in practice, sometimes we stumble. But if you do it with intent and knowing that you're doing it because it brings you joy, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Because I was speaking to Grashmi this morning because we're having some trouble at work in the schools. And she said, Amma, this is supposed to make you happy. Ye tum kya kar rahi ho? Achha, okay. It's supposed to make you happy. And if it doesn't bring you joy, you're supposed to just step back and see what went wrong. Yeah. And I understand because there is great, great, great joy in being a part of a community.
And when you say community, Vision Unlimited is exactly what? If you can just
of course. Oh, thank
that's
you.
Right.
Oh, that's I think what Grashmi was trying to tell me कि भैया कुछ काम की बात कर लो.
नहीं.
So Grashmi,
we know, but the people who may be watching wouldn't know what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So Vision Unlimited is a group of us who've come together. This started off as a Facebook page, and then it took a life of its own. Every time there was a disaster of some sort anywhere, we took great pride in being first responders. And I say this with so much joy and so much, I don't know, perhaps pride in what we've managed to build. But when the Kerala floods happened, at one point in time, all the insulin in Kerala had been flown in from Delhi by a neighbor who's a pilot, bought in my hospital, by me, by hand, preserving the cold chain.
Wow.
And we collected so much relief material that they actually got us a separate plane to fly off the stuff we'd got. You know, I mean, that's how cool we were. No, and it wasn't a not-for-profit organization. It was just me on Facebook saying, this is required. Can you help? My ghar became a godown. It was like a kachre ka dabba. Everything was, and every time there has been anything that has needed people to pitch in, people have pitched in. People have pitched in. And during the times that there were riots in Delhi, we said somebody was trying to set up padhai ka kuch, and they said we need some books. And I came home and I couldn't and I live in a biggish home. You've seen the house, right? Yeah. There was no space for me to enter the house because people had sent me books. And I looked at that and I said, Mera ghar ban gaya, khayyam ka ghar aaj ki raat. It was poetry in motion to have a house full of books. And I have never known greater joy than that. Vision Unlimited now focuses more and more on education. So we have 5 tiny slum centers running within Badshapur, about like 5 kilometers from where this cafe is. Some 400 children come to school every day. They get a hot meal every day except on Tuesdays when we don't work. I'm responsible for their education, not just theirs, but that of their families as well. Nutrition, hygiene, joy, Jawan. During COVID, so I have to rewind a bit, okay? So part of me having battled, unable to, my inability to eat, also because I was so scared of money, was me realizing that both pain and hunger are universal when you are in a new place. When you're trying to find your feet, whether it is geographically a new place or emotionally a new place. So we started running a tiny food bank. तो कोई भी अगर आया है बाहर से और उसको खाने की ज़रूरत है तो मेरे घर से उसको 3 महीने का राशन मिल जाता था. God was kind. By the time I had, I had a stable job, I knew what I was doing. And that became crazy during COVID. Again, we ended up supporting 7,000 families with food. It was outrageous. I mean, it was like, ho kya raha hai? We just didn't know how it was happening. We just didn't know how it was happening, but it did happen. And that's the power of the collective and of community. Because I don't have that kind of money, I don't have that kind of resources. People pitched in with everything. Patna mein floods aaye, किसी ने कछुआ छाप की दुकान खुलवा दी संडे को. गोडाउन खुलवा करके हमें इतना सारा, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, मच्छर वाली अगरबत्ती को, कछुआ छाप वाले ना, द कॉइल. सो इट्स लाइक ठीक है 10,000 चाहिए ना तुम्हें, ठीक है ले लो. Those are the stories that stay, they linger, and then you realize how much bigger you are than yourself. And तुम्हारा lung function test कब हुआ था? Anybody here who's had a lung function test? When?
This year.
This year?
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months ago.
14? So my children had it this year as well. So our children in the slums get a lung function test also once a year.
Yeah.
So that's the level of healthcare
That's amazing.
that we've managed
That's
to
amazing.
get. No, I've blackmailed colleagues. It's not like मैंने कुछ किया है. Being a doctor has its perks, right? You can. But yes, what I want you to understand is that that's the level of care we bring to our children. My children went to watch Jawan in Arya Mall. They ordered popcorn for the first time in their lives. And I think it's those experiences that will stay with them. Literacy, numeracy, safe space is of course a given. It's something that we guarantee our children, right? As a civilized society. We don't always provide it, but that's something that Vision Unlimited prides in doing. But we take exceptional pride in the fact that we truly believe in inclusion. Truly.
I'm just floored, yeah.
Because you are as much Vision Unlimited as anybody else. This one's a volunteer, that's a volunteer, that's a volunteer. Everyone's worked. I mean, and nobody's asked me for anything in return, not even a free eye consult, which is my usual bribe. कि आ जाओ आँख देख लूँगी मैं तुम्हारी और कर ही नहीं सकती कुछ किसी के लिए घर में बुलाऊंगी नहीं खाना मैं खिलाऊंगी नहीं अब यहाँ बुला लेंगे Kanika खाना खिला देगी if you are volunteering for Vision Unlimited.
Absolutely. No, but
yes, that's
it has.
the.
I just.
All our grandmoms have had mammographies on site.
That's amazing.
Huh?
You know.
Yeah. No,
This
don't
is,
listen.
You're very well spoken, so don't mind how I'm going to say the following. You're very articulate. Like, it's amazing listening to you. I could go on listening to you.
Yeah, which is why Shah Rukh loves me, na?
Damn. Okay, you got me there. No, but Shibal, you are an example of a person, and I would like to say, allow me to say woman. I would like to.
I identify
because that
as
is,
one.
and it is what it is. You
Yes.
are a woman sitting in front of me, so I am going to say a woman. You are an example of a woman who, like the rest of us, has been through life and its motions, then has chosen to educate herself, then unlearn, then relearn, and not stop. So that continues, I think, in on one path.
I
parallel.
hope so.
It is very well accomplished on one side. At the other side, like you said, mathematically, I had these 2-3 parts of my life. Then chose to design her life, wherein that intent bit came, right? Where you thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to put intent. There is intent to design my life in so and so way, and you went for it with strength, with courage, and more than anything else, belief in yourself. So you saying, yes, of course, community will come into play, but community will come into play when there is a starter.
Yes.
You are the starter. So yes, you started something, that's when community came into play. That is yours. It is yours today. Of course, yes, you spoke about the Vision Unlimited wala because I remember you and I had spoken, and I have to say this, by the way. I have to say this. You may not remember this. We had a conversation. She had asked for something. There were some translators coming from Singapore, and they wanted help. She wanted help with people who could translate from English to Hindi to teach the teachers. It was something like that. Of course, I don't know what happened to it though, but I had reached out that we had a phone call, and I was like, I'll be available. It was, I think, in the first month of August or something. It was slated to be held, and I reached out. She is doing this thing as out of kindness. But the first thing that she asked me, she didn't know me, we didn't know each other that well then, is how much would you want as compensation? And I remember getting a little like, I said, I'm not doing it for that, and I don't want, I'm comfortable. She said, no, because is that something that you've seen in your life? Because you said that, no, because some people ask, and
I'm going to get goosebumps saying this,
Please
right? Okay, this is a tough thing to say. What I have realized is that the kindest people are those who are struggling themselves.
Yes.
So I always offer, because sometimes we are pouring from an empty cup. And I have seen it. I shouldn't be saying this because it's so politically incorrect to say this.
Please say it all the more. Please say it all the more. This place is for political incorrectness.
Those who have it all find it very difficult to give.
It is true. Somebody has to say it, Shibal. It's a fact.
It's the fanciest homes which will, call you up and say, can you pick up something for the children from my house? And you go and then they'll give you.
Yeah, pittance. We need to talk about these things.
And, which is why when somebody reaches out to me with an offer of help, and I don't know if I said that to you, but I would have said, are you in a place where you can afford to donate time?
Yes, she did.
You said that.
You said that to you as well?
Time and what will be any compensation? And I'm like, no.
I
I'm
know.
not doing it for compensation.
No, Kanika, I know you're doing it from the goodness of your heart.
But you asked, is what I'm pointing
I will,
out.
because I know that those of us who are battle scarred and battle weary are the ones who will reach out to help the others who are like us. Those who are comfortable in our own air-conditioned silos and stilettos will invariably never reach out to help.
They don't.
They will not, which is
it's a
okay.
fact. It is.
Theirs is a very difficult life.
Yeah, and it's also
Like my mum says, ना सर झाड़ मुंह फाड़ तुम चली जाती हो, उनको देर लगती है, तैयार होना पड़ता है.
Thank you for saying this.
Mine is a 90-second
also have-
sari.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And Kanika is wearing jeans under a sari. Just so you know. There it is. So, so those of us who are, I call it battle scarred and battle weary.
It is true. It is. It's amazing. This is great. And one last question before we finally listen to your voice is, there's a book,
Ah, yes.
Bena's Summer.
Yes.
I want to talk about that. I went through it a little bit. It is about summer for a little girl. I could go through only a little bit because, I saw it yesterday. But
She didn't even know I had written a book.
actually,
I
no,
was- I was at
when
an
I saw
event,
the cover,
yes.
I have.
You have? Oh,
I
okay.
have seen the book. I remember seeing the cover
Okay.
because I do designing for covers. But I remember seeing the book. But I will buy it. And thank you for sharing a little bit. But I will. I want to. It's cute. It's cute.
very nice.
It's so cute. But what is it about? If you can tell.
Oh, I could, but it's about everything. It's about me growing up. It's about life. It's about how children.
Is it your?
Yes,
it
yes, it is very much my story.
And Bena.
Benazir is Bena's real name, and it is her story of when she was 8 and when she saw so much that around her that everyone thought she didn't need to process, but she did. And I think Bena is who I turn to, and is who I hope I always will be. It's aspirational in a way for myself that I must live true to Benazir. I must live true to who she is. So the book was also very cute. The story behind the book is something that is phenomenal. So I don't know how to say this, but I'm fiercely proud of both the pain and the pleasures of my past and my cultural heritage. Like, you can't imagine how fiercely I protect my pain also. Because it is my space, it is a space that brings me all I have. It is what has made me who I am. Like, I like to think of my life as, I don't know, like broken in many ways, but welded together with gold. So I am Kintsugi, and I hope I remain true to that. Because my breaking is part of who I have become now, because I could have remained that plastic, nice porcelain happy vase as well. But I think I am better as a person and more courageous as a person because of what I have had to live through. Whether it was my injury, whether it was my, the breakdown of a marriage, or whether it is my relationships which have floundered in so many ways. I think that's what has made me who I am today, and which is why you've, picked me to come and speak with you.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't have if I was doing my regular plastic thingy. So Bena summer, I wrote on WhatsApp for a family group and a group of people who were like, and it was like a series of messages. I was commuting from, like GK is where I used to live, and I used to commute till Aradhya moved to DPS RK, which is when we shifted to Gurgaon, because that was also very engineered. कि उसके स्कूल के पास है, जब स्कूल equidistant हो जाएगा from Fortis, that's when we'll do the transition. On the long drive, there used to be lots of red lights, and I used to write on the red lights. And one of the cousins, and there's a niece of mine who's almost the same age, and there were a bunch of friends on that group as well. And it's like, phir kya hua? So it was that phir kya hua messaging. And there's another friend of mine who just downloaded all the messages because I had lost most of them. I didn't retain messages, and put it in a PDF and said, here's your book. And HarperCollins decided to publish it. That is serendipity. So, yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. We forgot to carry a copy for you, but you will get it. No. Oh, I should have carried some. Okay, we'll sort this out. I'll get you the book. It's a book that you should read. I love it.
This, on a lighter note, your entire interview, I will send to Red Chillies and say, "ये आपकी story है. Let me play." So, why don't you cast Shah Rukh Khan? I will play Shibal. This is a ready.
No, you're too pretty to play Shibal.
उल्टा क्या बोल रहे हो आप? What are you saying? But what a story, dude.
Yeah, it has been an incredible journey. I can't imagine how
Shibal,
the universe conspires, darling, and the kindness you receive is always more to listen. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You were willing, and you were open, and you were raw, and your arms were open. Love. Dekho.
Forever. Shah Rukh does it well.
No, but thank you so much. And I would like to say this. In fact, today I was talking to Pratik, that's my videographer who's behind the camera, and somebody who's a solid team member. We were discussing something, and after listening to you, we were discussing about, because, just saying it, Voice of Silence is the 36th episode, and it's completely funded by my art, and the months that I don't do art, I told somebody, मैं अपना gold डालूंगी इसमें, लेकिन मैं करती रहूंगी ये. So yes, I am looking for help and stuff, but this is something I just want to do. So when you have reinforced it, thank you. You have reinforced this, the intent that I have even with this. बिकॉज वही है, मुझे
वही है और
है,
कुछ है नहीं
मुझे
करना है तो करना है ना, और जो करना है वो करना है,
वो कहा जो करना है,
the world will align itself, it always does.
I mean, it just did. You're here. It just did. Are you understanding this? This is synchronicity of a sort, because I may have been thoda sa aise, and here you come, and
yeah, I'm so happy to be that person.
Thank you so much, Shibal. Any last words that you would like to say to the world in general? Your voice or anything that you would like to say before we wrap up?
I'm supposed to look into the camera there and say it, right? I think I'm going to look here and say it. So, so when Kanika was talking about it and she asked me what we should call the show, she said we should call it The Voice of Kindness. And I said, yes, I think that's been the underlying thread of my life, and it's how I have received more than I have given, so yes. And then I messaged her in the evening to say, no, I would like it to be called The Voice of Joyful Kindness. Because that's how it is, and they're both so integral, where I cannot shrink one to the preference over the other. So joy is as important as kindness. And they're not mutually exclusive. They go together. And we all try to live this spirit. Whatever the outcome, if you're successful, it's definitely better. But even if you aren't, just trying is worth it. Same for you, same for The Voice of Silence. Whether this becomes the next Red Chillies, and I hope it does, but it's worth trying, right? And the other thing about kindness and joyful kindness is the caveat it comes with. And that's something I want Grashmi to remember more than anyone else. Beta, empathy without boundaries is self-destruction.
Wow.
It is an absolute and complete disaster. I have done it in the past. Never do it. You've done it too, I can see it in your face. The other thing is that unconditional love, beta, does not mean unconditional tolerance. It doesn't. You live within brackets of self-preservation, self-love, and when you have enough, you give and you will receive in abundance. But never forget that. You have to remember that for the rest of your life if there is nothing you remember. Give till it hurts, but when it starts to hurt, stop. The world has enough for all of us and more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.